America, My Patriot Supply. We've served millions of American families going on 14 years. At MyPatriotSupply.com, our mission is your survival. Our emergency food could definitely be your lifesaver when the peanut butter hits the fan. Choose from dozens of delicious meal kits that provide over 2,000 calories a day, which is what your body needs. Order today and your food will ship fast in unmarked boxes to protect your privacy. Don't wait. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com right now. MyPatriotSupply.com.
Divine Intervention is online at YourFortDodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
That's right. That's where we are, and we welcome to the program once again, Sudden Sam Clovis. How are you, Sam?
Doing great, Mike. How about you?
Well, I'm doing all right, but I tell you, you may have called the wrong day. I know this is your regular day to call, but I'm fed up to my eyes with this nonsense that keeps coming out of Washington and this pathetic presidency we have in progress. I heard news commentators this morning, not on Fox News, telling us that, this could be another one-term presidency like that guy from Georgia we had several years ago. and there is a little bit of a comparison. Earnest. Jimmy Carter was very earnest in everything he said, and Joe Biden tries to be threatening, which is ridiculous for a man of his age. But, he's always talking about systematic racism, like gets the Clint Eastwood look on his face, systematic racism. And like he's going to come out of the screen and beat the hell out of systematic racism. And if you look at what he's done so far in the presidency, he's nearly wrecked the country. For God's sake, he cut off this climate change thing that he's got going. I don't think we appreciate it here in Iowa. What he's talking about is going to crush the ethanol business. Now, if I remember correctly, Sam, in the early 1990s, a bushel of corn was selling for about $1.90.
Yep.
And the only thing that saved a lot of farmers today in the agricultural economy as we know it is ethanol. Ask any farmer, they'll tell you the same thing. And the Biden administration and the Democratic Party in Iowa is complicit in this. They want to wreck that in the name of climate change. And by the way, a lot of other countries in the world aren't going to change their industrial policy at all.
No.
And I don't believe the Chinese for a minute. The Chinese in the country of India use that really black high-density coal.
Right.
I mean, they're using the worst type of coal. They have no plans to stop. China will tell us they do, but yeah, right.
Well, I think it's interesting because you bring this up. This has been the argument that Nancy Pelosi has made about the fact that China has a terrible human rights record. China is unfair in trade. China this, China that. And then all of a sudden she turns around and said, but we have to work with them because they're going to work with us on climate change. And what climate change it really is a religion, and it's fundamental. And what it really goes back to is the redistribution of wealth from rich countries to poor, and this is probably the most important, is to get at the notion of limiting population, because it is for some reason the left believes that we have too many people, that we don't have enough resources to support the people that we have on the earth, and that rich countries use far too much of the resources that are available out there. So they look at this as zero sum, that because we use it, somebody else can't, and oh, by the way, we're going to wreck the planet. Now, the issue I've never heard from the left is okay, so where are we going and how are we going to try to control the wind and the tides and condensation and all of the other things so that we can get it to rain exactly at the right time, for the sun to shine in exactly the right way, that there will be no tornadoes, there will be no hurricanes, that all of these other things will happen if we can fix this anthropogenic impact that we're having on global warming and all the other issues. I don't hear any of the science. I don't hear any of the arguments from the left that convinces me that we really need to be concerned about this issue of climate change unless you pull the scab off. And then all of a sudden you see exactly what is at the bottom of this. And what's at the bottom of this is simply the notion of redistribution of wealth.
That's right.
And limiting population. That is exactly what this is about.
It's more insidious than that. Nancy Pelosi wants to move our energy capability and profits from the Gulf states, which God forbid they're Republicans, to California. Right. And because there are people in her district and around her district that are heavily invested in green technology and a green future. Al Gore has a lot of money sunk in green technology. He's betting on the come. And with Biden in the White House, I can see why he would.
Well, but the notion is that none of this stuff works. None of it works. And so we can go out here and say, okay, so what are we going to do now? Now, the one thing that has worked and the one thing that has helped is solar panels. If you put solar panels on your house, you can eventually store that energy. You can have the batteries available so that then you don't have to take so much energy off of the grid. Now, that is one thing that is technologically has advanced. However, let's look at what happened in the Obama administration with solar panels. The Chinese are able to make the solar panels at like $2 a square foot. In America, we can't make them for less than $6 a square foot. So let's go and find out where you're going to buy your solar panels. Are you going to buy American solar panels if they're $6 a square foot, or are you going to buy from China when they're $2 a square foot? Where do you think you're going to buy? And especially if the quality is no different. So this is where we have Solyndra. Remember Solyndra? $538 million sunk into a solar panel company in California that produced no solar panels and couldn't operate and went out of business in 18 months. $538 million.
God, it's pathetic. It's painful. There's some things you can just laugh at in disgust. I guess don't mistake my don't believe I'm laughing because I think that's funny. I don't. It's just sickening and pathetic.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it's also incomprehensible. The idea that we have people that believe this stuff, that they go out and believe, and this is the problem I've always had with the anthropogenic global warming. They conflate anthropogenic global warming. For those in Rio Linda, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, that means human-caused global warming, and the notion of climate change. Well, all you've got to do is go outside your door at your studio, talk to the first person on the street, and they would say, well, yeah, the climate changes every day. Of course it does. We know about climate change. But you can't conflate this global warming crap, which is what it is, crap, with the notion of climate change, because the climate does change. The Sahara Desert used to not be a desert. The Gobi Desert did not used to be a desert. There are, as the Earth changes and the wind patterns change and tidal movements change and Gulf streams change and the Pacific stream changes, all the climate changes with that. So this is, that the hand of nature to go out here and say that man can fix that by some mechanism, and I don't know what that mechanism is, that is preposterous. And that's the whole notion about this notion of global warming is a preposterous notion. And there is the science to support it is preposterous as well. And so you sit and ask yourself, how in the world is it that we've convinced ourselves, at least the media has, that this is a good thing? It's not a good thing. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, Mike. I can go on forever on this.
Yeah, I'm particularly struck that there's a Democrat holding office in Iowa right now, or in the Corn Belt in general. The Biden administration, again, and the Iowa Democratic Party and the Illinois Democratic Party, all of these state parties are complicit in trying to shut ethanol down over the long term. I don't care. Cindy actually has in the 3rd district. She's in office mainly because of Polk County. She represents 17 counties, but she lost 16 of them in the last election. Right. But she's there mainly because of she's there to take care of some Polk County public employees. With whatever federal help she can get for those people, she'll do it. But Cindy actually feels a little bit of heat because she's running commercials in the Des Moines area right now. And I don't even think she has a Republican challenger yet. She might. I don't know. Not yet. But she's scared of what could happen, I guess, or the Democratic Party is scared. Cindy actually is also thinking of running for governor, which I hope she does because she'd be out.
Well, she would vacate. She would vacate that congressional seat, making an open seat. It would be an interesting thing to see what that battle would, how that would evolve. But I agree. I don't know that. I thought she was going to run for Senate. For the Senate. That's who's the Democrat that they've got queued up to run for the Senate against Grassley?
Sam Clovis. Sam Clovis is our guest, and Sam is a former Trump administration official, a former Air Force pilot, former talk show host, which I think is top of the heap of his impressive resume. I think that's the best, but Sam may disagree. He was also a professor of economics at Morningside. Am I correct?
That's correct.
All right. Sam, I got a hat today from a friend of mine, a cap. He knows I like caps, and he got me a cap, and the message on the cap says, "This is the government the founders warned us about," which hit me right between the eyes. I mean, it was kind of a joke and we laughed about it, but there's a very serious underlying message to this silly little hat. This is exactly the type of government our founders warned us about.
Well, this is what they wrote the Constitution to prevent. They wrote the Constitution to prevent the kind of government that we have right now. But we have not adhered to the Constitution. We have gone far afield. If we limited it, the government limited itself to the Constitution and to the enumerated powers therein, we would have a much different shape of government, and we would have a much more responsive government. I think that this is one of the issues that has come up, is that the government, by every day, by every measure, is separating itself from the people that it is supposed to represent and serve. And that's the notion, that the people are not there to serve the government. The government should be there to serve the people. And we don't have that going on. We don't have that going on at all. And I think this is on both parties. I don't think that this is simply because we have a Democrat president and a Democrat Congress right now that we're seeing, we're seeing a very strong progressive agenda being advanced. But I also think that the Republicans in the establishment in Washington, D.C., in Congress are complicit in this as well. And I really do. I just don't think that they're representing us adequately at all.
By the way, the first time I met Sam Clovis, and we've mentioned this before, was at Iowa Central when he was doing his Western Civilization tour. And I still wish you had that on DVD somewhere, but I know you don't. I know you don't. But he started with King Clovis. King Clovis was famous for two things. First of all, for giving Sam his last name, of course.
Right.
Actually, he was famous for a couple of other things. He was important. Famous makes it sound like King Clovis was a rock star. He converted to Catholicism in 456. That's 456, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't like yesterday. But and he gathered all the Frankish tribes under one king. Well, that would be him, of course. But those are the two things that we remember King Clovis for. My son's a real history buff. I remember I came home and said, "Yeah, I listened to Sam Clovis. He talked about King Clovis, and he was a teenager then. He looked at me and said, "I know who King Clovis is," and he told me about King Clovis. And he still does that to this day. He's really, I'll tell you, he should be teaching history at a university somewhere. That kid, he's 39 years old.
Yeah, well, my kids are 45, 40, and 34. So yeah, we've got them out there. But no, I think that that's the one thing Churchill said. If you want to look in the future, look at your past, because we have a tendency to repeat it. And I was reading recently about Nero and how he burned Rome because he felt that it was he wanted to rebuild the city, so he burnt the city down, and then he blamed it on the Jews and the Christians, and so that was where a lot of the persecution, early persecution of Jews and Christians came from in the Roman Empire, and because Nero wanted to divert attention away from his inadequacies, and so it's interesting that history repeats itself over and over again, particularly when it comes to autocratic governments. And I think that this administration would like to be autocratic, authoritarian, centralized with the states as simple vassals of the central government and exercising the power thereof, without governors, without legislatures, without anything other than just the administrative arms to make sure that the trains ran on time, which we can't do in this country. So the Germans don't seem to have any trouble, but we seem to have all kinds of trouble getting that done. But I think this goes back to the deep state, and the deep state is not there to serve the people, and our Congress is not holding the deep state or the president accountable.
No, no, at all. That seems to be what Biden's attitude is toward this country. We need to tear down all the statues. We need to condemn the entire white race as nothing more than racists and thugs, and highlight all the terrible things that have ever happened through history, and say, once we tear all this down, then we'll rebuild the country. I don't think there's going to be a country to rebuild.
Well, but who has done that in the past? Let's think in the history that you and I might have the ability to look at because of what the history we learned. And in the 20th century, we had Benito Mussolini.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, and Mao Zedong. Then Kim Il Sung, the first there, and Pol Pot. Now think about all of those leaders. Think about all of those people politically, and what did they do? They tore down the history of their countries so that they could rewrite the history of their countries.
Yes,
and that's exactly what this. And look where all of those ended up. Look how they all ended up. And we do not want what China has. That is, absolutely do not want that, because an authoritarian government is authoritarian and autocratic, and that is what it takes to run a government the way that they run their government. Look at North Korea. Look at Cambodia. Look at Russia's history. Until they had the eventual collapse of socialism and communism and central authoritarian government. Think about all of those things, because that is, these are the history lessons that we ought to be learning, because we have clear evidence within the last 100 years that these things do not work, and that's the thing that bothers me the most, is that we tend to say, well, it'll work this time in America because we are in charge, and what it comes down to still is power and money, and that's
always.
If you put power and money ahead of service, then no service will ever be done.
Oh, yeah. You're a greater historian than I am, but I can hold my own with most people. No matter what continent it is on, the great wars in our history are all about power and money. Always. Always,
Yep.
always. And this one is no different. Politics, if politics is war by another, by other means.
By other means, that's exactly right. Von Clausewitz said that.
Yes, von Clausewitz said, the great German general. Uh, then we're fighting a real war for the soul of the country here. And Biden, I don't know what happened to him. You know, he was this Catholic guy, Senator credit card. He was a real moderate, middle of the road guy until somehow he got in the Biden administration. Then he was Mr. Gay Marriage and everything else. I don't know what happened to him, but I have a feeling it's because he wanted to stay relevant.
Well, I think that's always the case when you see people retread themselves or try to get back into the system or reinvent themselves in some mode or some capacity. And I think it's really it's a sad state. I don't think that he has full command of his mental faculties, and I think that people are taking advantage of him and taking advantage of the fact that he is the president. And to me, it is shameful what is going on, and the fact that this is it borders on elder abuse, in my view. And his wife, I don't know how his family can allow. They must lust for power because that is, to me, the only reason that they would have allowed him to run for president and now be president.
Oh, well,
because we just can't see it out there anymore.
If you look into Biden's family, he is the family business. I mean, his brother is mainly supported by Biden, or he's got him jobs and things like that. I mean,
Right.
if his sister worked for him several times in the past, and perhaps still does. I mean, and these are big salaries. These people are getting big salaries. Hunter Biden's just a disgrace, and I have never really harped on Hunter Biden because he's a guy with obvious addiction problems that his father's enabling. And Bo Biden, and as a human being, Joe Biden has been through a lot. He's had great losses in his life, and I just it must kill him to see his son go down this path after losing other children and his son. Bo in middle age, just terrible. I can't.
Well, he lost his wife and a child early on,
yes.
and then he lost Bo, and then he's got Hunter, who's a derelict, and
yes, he is.
So we have the. I agree, but on the other side of it, look at what he's done. 50 years in government service as an elected official. And, the fact of the matter is he couldn't lead you across the street. So it's like the criticism of the president is that's fair game. The criticism of the individual, you don't have to respect the individual, you have to respect the office. But at the same time, that person is there to do a job. And if they're not able to do the job, then we need to find somebody that is. And the lineup behind Joe Biden is not very promising.
No, it isn't. No, but let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Senator Biden back in the 90s, and they used Chuck Grassley as a front for this, Senator Biden wanted to protect the credit card companies in Delaware. The credit card companies were pressuring him, dangling money in front of him. Listen, too many people are going bankrupt and stiffing us. We want bankruptcy reform. Well, Joe Biden couldn't lead that effort, but he could be one of the signers of the bill along with Chuck Grassley. So working people out there who think the Democratic Party is your savior, if you get in trouble because of predatory lending practices by credit card companies, say thanks to Joe Biden, because he's the guy that got it done, and he didn't get it done on behalf of the people. He definitely didn't. Sam, can you call us back in about 7 or 8 minutes?
I will call you back in 8 minutes.
Thank you, sir. This is AM 1400 KVFD.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
It's 3:35. The news is coming up.
With the Capital One Saver Card, you earn unlimited 4% cash back on dining out or in.
Talk Radio.
But not clever enough.
Well, I think I'm clever enough. We welcome back to the program Sam Clovis. How you doing there, Sam?
Doing great, and I do think you're clever enough. I mean, by definition, if you're a radio talk show host, you are clever.
That's always what I thought. You know who John Cleese is, don't you? Of Monty Python. Remember the Monty Python?
Yes, I do.
I used to never miss Monty Python. I think they were on like Saturday night or Sunday night on public television way back in the day. But when I was kind of a pothead, me and my other pothead friends would sit around and get a big chuckle out of Monty Python, because they really had off the wall humor and were, I don't know how else to describe it other than they had a high class way of totally disrespecting authority, and they were terrific.
They were good, and they were able to do bathroom humor at a shall we say, sophisticated level.
Yes, so they could. And I have here a clip. It's just a minute and 14 seconds long, but here's a clip of John Cleese on the PC culture today.
PC lobby, the politically correct lobby, is something I don't understand, because a lot of what I see on television now, both here in America, seems to me much riskier than we would have got away with even in the Python days. And then at the same time, you hear about these politically correct movements, which I think are by and large run and staffed largely by obsessionals. There's a good idea at the back of political correctness, but it gets taken ad absurdum. And I think that the danger is this: if you're in a group of people and you find that one person is particularly touchy, they have difficulty controlling their emotions, greater difficulty than the other people in the group, then you can't have so much fun about them, because they're touchy and they're likely to explode. So when they're around, you're not as relaxed, you're not as spontaneous, you can't be more real. You have to kind of be more formal. Now, if you find that society is being run by the touchiest members, then in a sense, that's a bit sick, because you're trying to take as the general standard, the standard of the people who have the greatest problem controlling their emotions in that.
You can't be so real. You have to be careful. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but this is from John Cleese. This isn't a radical Republican. This isn't a conservative religious person. This is John Cleese, who in the 70s had some of the most famously and hilarious anti-authoritarian humor ever. And he's talking about the PC culture, which seems, and he's describing the PC culture as run by obsessionists. I couldn't have put it better.
Well, but I think also you're finding that if those staunch right-wing conservative reactionaries like Jon Stewart and Bill Maher and even Jimmy Kimmel and some of the others, Stephen Colbert, even they are poking fun at the PC culture because frankly, it affects their ability to make a living because comedians go out on stage and particularly they ridicule people in a lot of ways. Now, you take a look at a person like Lewis Black. Lewis Black is I think one of the most sophisticated and one of the best political comedians that there is out there, and he rips both sides.
The ultimate angry white man.
Oh, exactly. And I think he's the best, one of the best I've ever heard as a political comedian. And yet Lewis Black probably has to be extremely careful about what he says. Take a look at what Seinfeld. I mean, even guys like Seinfeld have been extremely careful about the fact that they can't go out and use the humor that got them where they are today, simply because of the PC culture that's out there. Now,
I would reject the term PC culture. These are violent, radical people. These are violent, radical people. Now, let's not hear any more of this. Oh, just a little bit of property damage. Oh, mostly peaceful protest. That's nonsense. They're terrorists. They're seditionists, and they will threaten you and hurt you if they can.
Well, those are also the people that want to rewrite our history. So we've already talked about that. Those are the most dangerous people that we have in our society are the people who want to take down our statues and want to rewrite our history. They are the most dangerous there is.
Sam,
And-
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
No, I just think that when you hear people, that even people who side with them, even people who are sympathetic to them, what that tells, that is enabling. That is enabling a behavior. It is enabling the type of activities that are absolutely contrary to good peace and order and contrary to the American culture. And I just, it goes beyond me that we have elected officials who kowtow to these people so quickly and so readily.
Sam, you're a former Air Force pilot. How many years did you
Right.
spend in the military?
25 years on active duty.
Okay. Did General Miley commit sedition, or is he a traitor?
I would think that he has violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I would not stretch it to the point of treason, but he certainly has limited himself in his ability to be effective. And I think that we, the people, have lost confidence in him as a military leader. So I think he needs to resign. I would go so far to say that he needs to be court-martialed.
All right. Okay.
What do you think?
I think he does. At the very least, he needs to resign right now, today.
Yeah.
He has broken the. Imagine what would happen if a colonel had broken the chain of command. He'd be forced to resign. If a brigadier, even whatever, brigadier is a one-star general, by the way, draft dodgers.
Yeah.
Those are for the non-military types that are always telling us how we should conduct foreign policy. But anyway, if a captain had done that, he would be court-martialed, for God's sake.
Right.
But if you set that sort of example at the top where you can break the chain of command because some crazy old woman from San Francisco called you up and screamed at you, if that's what you think you can do, then you need to step down, because that means everybody below you, if they do that, can point to your example and say, the general of the army, the top dog in the army, called our deadly enemy to warn them that this may happen. Oh, by the way, if we launch a nuclear attack, I'll call you and let you know it's on the way. What?
Well, the issue is that this is a guy who broke the chain of command, and if you cannot serve the president, the commander in chief, if you cannot serve, then you need to resign.
I think that's right. You do, and I would respect him if he'd have done that. If you
Absolutely.
cannot, if you come, be a man about it. Come out and say, "Hey, I cannot abide with this particular president. I respectfully step down. Hey, I'll shake your hand anytime." This kind of sneaky stuff, this partisan crap, I've got no time for.
Well, the worst part of it is positioning yourself for something, and this goes to what we've discussed at other times on this show, is the idea of general officers, flag officers in the Navy at the general officer rank, that they enrich themselves after retirement because they have become celebrities. That to me is wrong. I think that if you are the military, you serve and then you step aside. And I think that even as great as Norman Schwarzkopf was as commanding general, Barry McCaffrey and all of the rest of the guys from Desert Storm, and then later to Petraeus and all of those men have enriched themselves because they became celebrities. And I think that that's wrong. I just don't. I think it's okay to enrich yourself, but do it quietly and do it away from the public eye, and don't the ticker tape parade down Fifth Avenue is not, to me, what becoming a general officer is about.
No.
Of course, I wasn't a general, but but I also I spent enough time around them to tell you that most of them would operate the way that I think that with the integrity and honor that is necessary. And I think you sully yourself if you go out and try to make yourself some kind of celebrity or put the spotlight on yourself. I think that's you sully the rank that you have.
Yeah, the last one that did that was Douglas MacArthur, and look what happened to him.
Well, but I also think, you take a look at Norman Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell. I mean, nobody enriched themselves more than Colin Powell did.
Oh, nobody. Remember, there was a great trivia question about General Schwarzkopf regarding his father. What did his father do for a living, Sam?
I think he was a garbage man.
No, Norman Schwarzkopf Sr. was the lead investigator. He was a police officer in the Lindbergh kidnapping.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay, I remember now.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember one of the generals from that era. I think their father was a garbage collector in New York or something. I can't remember.
Well, could have been. I can't think of one right off the top of my head, but yeah, I always thought that was an interesting, again, trivia question about a very courageous man and a great general. He walked. I mean, he walked into Baghdad, and he should have. He was prevented from finishing the job in Iraq by who? Colin Powell, and because it lacked chivalry. Destroying the Iraqi war machine lacked chivalry. Do you remember that or not?
Yeah, but look what we had to do. We went back 10 years later and had to do the job we should have done in 91 or 90. That was the sad part of it is we had to go back and do it again.
And we'll have to do it again. The whole idea was to build a democracy in the Middle East to secure our country, to protect the homeland. Now we're not there. Now the Taliban is going house to house looking for collaborators, and what they're going to do to those poor people is horrible to think about. And this is something that Joe Biden did. Their blood is on his hands. I don't care. I don't care if that's too rough or not. That's what it is. Hey,
but he doesn't. He's not aware of it. I mean, I just don't think he's even aware of all of that.
I don't think so either. We got a few minutes left. Sam Clovis is our guest. What do you think of Randy Feenster's job so far?
Well, I would say that Randy he's done well in the fact that he's followed the lead of the leadership of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
That is probably as far as I can go with that. I don't particularly care for the leadership of the Republican Party right now, but that's what got Randy elected. He was elected because I'm sure he committed to the fact that he would follow the lead of the leadership, and that's exactly what he's done.
Well, for freshman congressmen, that's what they all do. I can't criticize. I can't even criticize Cindy Axne for that, because that's politics. Sam Clovis has been our guest, and it's always a great pleasure to talk to you, Sam. We'll talk to you next Monday.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike. We'll see you soon.
All right. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Blue Ribbon, Pelham Waters, your water pro since 1949.
very much into what we would call company towns, company homes.
Yes.
And we had a little bit of that in this country as well, and we did in Western Europe.
Oh, okay. Joe, I'm an old labor guy. Believe me, the labor situation in the early 20th century, you have to know, was just terrible, just awful. I mean, child labor laws hadn't been passed yet. There was great abuse. Let me put it that way, great abuse.
Yeah, there was terrible abuse. And Mike, just so we know, am I getting a little feedback from you?
Yes, you are, and I'm trying to do something about it here. Let me do this. How's that? Yeah, okay, I think I killed it. Go right ahead.
Oh,
yeah, that was on a
because
technical problem on my end.
I'd much rather listen to you than to myself.
Oh, come on, man. Come on, man.
All right, so here we go. Rerum novarum. For the first time, I mean, we have documents, both in the Federalist Papers and in our Constitution, writings by Voltaire, John Locke, John Stuart Mill. We have all of these things coming down the pipe. And so we get this guy in Rome, Leo the 13th, who synthesizes all of it. And he sets it out and he says, listen, in order to have a functioning society, we have to have an agreement between capital and labor. Capital and labor are not enemies. They're partners. And a society only gets into trouble when those two view each other as the enemy instead of partners.
Right.
And if you can make them partnership up, you are going to have a strong, vibrant society.
Yes.
And by and large, the American experience has, in my judgment, has done the best job of partnering up those two things. Now, we've had times where we've slipped and fallen. One might argue that right now we have the greatest wealth disparity that we've ever had in this country, even exceeding the time of the Great Depression.
Yes.
But nonetheless, we still have, this experiment has been stellar in America, absolutely stellar. And everybody says, well, wait a second, isn't that kind of a socialist idea? Well, anybody that reads Rerum Novarum will see that he absolutely shuts down socialism. He castigates it. He talks about the evils of it. It makes it very clear we do not need socialism. But socialism and being in partnership with labor and capital are two entirely different things. A socialist state, the state takes everything. It owns the property, it owns the people, it owns everything from the means of production, through the sale, and then it invidiously moves into the family and controls the family.
Of course.
Controls how your children are raised, controls how they're educated. And that's what we saw go completely off the rails in the Soviet Union. And I had the opportunity to visit the Soviet Union at the time of its fall during the summer of 88, 89. And you would see what they had with these pioneer camps, where they went in and they took the children and they brought them into these camps. And literally they were indoctrinating them, taking them away from their families. And of course, the net result was that the Soviet system was merely a house of cards, and not even a very good house of cards.
I will never forget when the Soviets first invaded Afghanistan. I think the year was 1980. One of the things they did to quell the rebellion was round up all the 10-year-old boys and take them to the Soviet Union to be indoctrinated. The parents weeping pitifully at the airport as their child was taken were unforgettable, have been unforgettable to me. The Soviet Union was truly was an evil empire.
No argument there whatsoever. But back to Leo, when he was writing Rerum Novarum, he talked about the responsibility of capital to give the workers a living wage.
Yes.
More importantly, he also said to the workers, you need to give a full day's work for this living wage.
That's right.
We're going to make our workers not have to work under unsafe conditions. Smacking of OSHA 70 years later. It's ironic. It's absolutely ironic. But by the same token, he was saying to the workers, you have to fully and faithfully perform your agreed upon tasks. No vandalism, no rioting. You need to live an ordered life respectful of your employer. But that respect was a two-way street, running to the worker as well. And you and I both know from the history of our union struggles here in America that when we got, from my own personal perspective, I think the time of the Pax Americana ran from the end of the Second World War to about 1980, maybe 1990. Where we had a car in every garage and
Yes.
2 chickens in every pot.
Oh, yes.
That old bromide. And we were safe. We felt good about ourselves. We felt good about our society. I mean, kids were allowed to ride their bicycles up and down the streets, and you didn't have to worry about a kid being spirited off. There were so many good things going on. Sometimes those good things masked the terrible things that were going on. But by and large, it was an exceedingly peaceful time. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out we were a very religious country during that time period as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That culture is now gone. I don't see it ever coming back. I fear for my country. I do. I think the country, well, it depends on what group of people you're talking about. The disaster that hit working people in this country was the Clinton administration and his NAFTA. NAFTA was really more than just open borders. It was a series of tax incentives for businesses to take their business overseas, which they did. It impoverished people that the Clintons callously believed wouldn't vote for them anyway, so they didn't care about them, which is an attitude that has followed every president, maybe with the exception of Obama, surprisingly enough. But Biden has that attitude. Trump had that attitude.
If you and I want to discuss the politics of it, we can do that, because there's obviously and always an obverse side to that coin. The last time within human memory that the budget was balanced was in the Clinton administration.
Mm-hmm.
The longest period of prosperity was in the Obama administration. But we're going to get caught off on talking about political things. If you are right, let's take the position that you're right, okay? Just for argument's sake here. If those things were so disparaging and so harmful, we have had administrations from both sides of the aisle that have failed to correct them. Would you agree?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. Oh, of course.
Okay, so there, as the poet or whoever once said, there's enough flame to go around here for everybody.
Sure.
The fact of the matter is that if you look at Rerum Novarum and you look through, there is a underlying directive that we need to focus on the common good. And the focus of the common good not only takes place economically, it takes place socially, it takes place educationally, it takes place medically. It is a philosophy of we're all in this boat together. And whether you're handling the tiller or whether you're handling one of the oars, the boat will not be successful unless we're all headed in the same direction.
That's correct. I guess I when I brought up the Clintons, here's the way I feel about this, Joe. Rerum Novarum was a moral document for Christian men and women. It laid out the responsibilities under God, I feel, of all the different classes of people. Some decisions that were made in this country, allowing the type of poverty I described, or the type of betrayal that I've described by the Clintons, I believe those to be amoral decisions. I believe those are decisions that only took politics and wealth into consideration and nothing and no one else. Certainly, the American working force was not taken into consideration. And frankly, working people in other countries really weren't taken into consideration because companies now hop from country to country to country. I mean, China is not a place for an American corporation, but American corporation employs many, many people there. If you used an iPhone today, it came from China, and it came from poor people working under terrible conditions. And that's just one example.
So, Michael, let's talk about a quick solution. I'd like to run something by you and get your take on it. Let's assume, for purposes of discussion, that all of the corporations who are manufacturing here in the United States went overseas. Okay,
sure.
They went overseas, and now all of a sudden, what they want to do is they want to bring their product back into the United States to sell it, because we're the consumer paradise of the world. Not China, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Not China. Everybody thinks that, but it isn't that way. So what if the Congress decided that in order for an American corporation, in order to sell its product in the United States, must in fact have their business here? Now, it wouldn't affect foreign corporations because, they're not American corporations. And American corporations would have two choices at that point. They'd have the choice of either divesting themselves of American corporate protective laws and moving offshore, or coming back in and working, being taxed and being a good citizen. Okay, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
What would you think of that alternative, Michael?
I think that would be just fine. American companies overseas cannot expect us to protect their property. They cannot expect us to keep the sea lanes open for their international trade. Now, I say that because the young men and women who are going to have to defend their property are usually from the working class. And the Rerum Novarum very specifically lays out that people should be treated decently and humanely and in a Christian fashion. That's not happening now.
No argument there. And you make a point, Michael, that a lot of people don't realize. American corporations who are offshore take advantage of some huge taxing benefits, i.e., they have a legal system. Frank, by the way, those corporations that are offshore, when they have a legal problem, they don't go to Haiti to solve their legal problem. They employ the American court system.
Of course.
People don't realize what a highly functional gem, pearl that is, that's the envy of the world. The other thing you're talking about, keeping the sea lanes open and that type of thing. You are exactly on point. I was listening to a program today, and you'll get a kick out of this, Michael. The United States of America has 800 foreign bases or depots where they can stop across the world outside of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
800. You know what the next closest country has?
What's that?
20. 20.
That doesn't surprise
20.
me.
Well, does that tell you? Or we're looking right now at this big $3.5 trillion package that everybody is screaming about.
Mm-hmm.
That's over the next 10 years, by the way. That's $350 billion a year for the next 10 years. You know what the Pentagon's budget is this year that they just proposed? Almost $800 billion a year. It's $8 trillion over 10 years. Does Do we ever stop to think about that? Our infrastructure bill, which is supposed to take care of ourselves, the needs that we have, pales by comparison with the $8 trillion defense budget, but nobody even looks at that. And nobody even raises an issue. And you can take our defense budget, and people don't have to take my word for it. They can look it up. They can Google it. They can go to whatever source makes them comfortable. And the first thing that they're going to learn is the next 16 countries in the world equal our defense budget. The next 16 countries. So we're back to rerum novarum, looking at the common good. What is good for our society across the board?
Here's a quote from Rerum Novarum. It says, human law is a law only by virtue of its accordance with right reason. Let me say that again. Human law is a law only by virtue of its accordance with right reason. And thus it is manifest that it flows from the eternal law. And insofar as it deviates from right reason, it's called an unjust law. In such a case, it is no law at all, but rather a species of violence. That's from Thomas Aquinas, by the way.
Right. And more importantly, what that is you just read in a few sentences a synopsis of the Declaration of Independence.
I hadn't thought of that, but I think you're right.
Absolutely. We are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and then listing them, and among the whole panoply of things. Absolutely. And talking about the unjust laws and how if laws aren't fair, they are unjust and they don't need to be followed.
You got to watch that, Joe, saying things like that. Somebody will find the Constitution racist or some doggone thing and want it banned. All right, Joe Coleman's our guest. Joe, I'd like you to come back in 8 minutes if you can, please.
Will do. See you then.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. I'm the Doctor of Truth, and I'm broadcasting from the Blue Ribbon Pelham Motors studio. Blue Ribbon Pelham Motors is at 612 South 32nd Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Motors by calling 576-6481. That's 576-6481. It's 4:30. The news is coming up.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Guys, stop putting your love life on hold. U.S. Pharmacy has some exciting news. If you've been wanting to try Viagra or Cialis, now's the perfect time. Call today and receive 90 little blue or little yellow pills for only $119 with free shipping. Why order some low-dose sildenafil from one of those subscription services when we can give you what you want now? Call 800-990-6271 and we'll rush your order discreetly packaged to your door. Been thinking about trying Viagra or Cialis? Call U.S. Pharmacy at 800-990-6271 for as little as only $119 for 90 pills. Need your package in a hurry? Call 800-990-6271 and ask about our express shipping option, and we'll rush your order to you as soon as possible. Save money on the little blue or yellow pill you've been wanting to try. Again, 800-990-6271 now. That's 800-990-6271.
I'm Rocky Moselle with StarRegistry.com. Since we were children, we've been told to reach for the stars. It was great advice. Now it's a great gift. Name a star after someone. For $54 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit StarRegistry.com, we will name a star after someone very special to you and send an incredible personalized gift. The new star name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Call the Star Registry, 800-282-3333 or visit StarRegistry.com for the hottest gift.
Your news, your town, your station. AVFD News when it breaks.
From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Kelly Heinen. Current Iowa Attorney General Tom Miller has announced his intention to run for re-election. Miller spoke at the Polk County Democrats Steak Fry this weekend.
Right now, we're doing some of the best work we've ever done. We have some of the best staff we've ever had. I'm energized and challenged and fulfilled by the office.
Miller went on to say his office serves ordinary Iowans.
The goal of the office is to use the law to serve the interest of ordinary Iowans.
Miller was first elected Attorney General in 1978, then again in 1994 after a run for governor. Miller did not have an opponent in 2018, and at this time, no challenger has been announced for 2022. Current Iowa Secretary of State Paul Pate will face opposition in the next election cycle. 2 Democrats have announced plans to run against Pate, a Republican. Clinton County Auditor Eric Van Lanker and Lynn County Auditor Joel Miller spoke at the Polk County Democrat Steak Fry. Van Lanker cited recent Republican legislation that limits Iowans' ability to vote as a reason to run.
Ending counting absentee ballots at the end of an election night is absolutely irresponsible when we have barcode technology that tells us when a voter returns their ballot in good faith.
Miller told supporters that he wants to make voting easy again, citing a lawsuit he faced for mailing out absentee ballots with the voter's address and registration number on them. Pate spoke at an election event for Marion at Miller Meeks and encouraged his supporters to get out and vote in upcoming elections. Pate mentioned Iowa's voter ID law and criticized the Freedom to Vote bill recently drafted by Senate Democrats. And the fall equinox arrives on Wednesday, but the warm, drier weather is forecast to hold on into fall. Brian Fuchs with the National Drought Mitigation Center said there is below normal precipitation forecast for much of the Central Plains through October.
For precipitation, we're seeing above normal chances of below normal precipitation in portions of the Central Plains. But as we go further east, we start seeing equal chances to maybe above normal chances of above normal precipitation during the month of October.
Drought conditions persist in much of that area with few rain chances ahead. Fuchs told Radio Iowa that after months of drought, there's little change in rainfall going forward. For more information on these stories and more, log on to yourfortdodge.com. From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Kelly Heinen.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. December corn down 5.5 at 521 3/4. March down 4.5 at 529 3/4. May corn down 3 3/4 at 534.5. July down 2 3/4 at 533.5. November soybeans down 21.5 at 1262.5. January down 21 1/4 at 1271 3/4. March down 21 at 1276 1/4. May down 20 cents to close at 1282.5. Soybean meal down 240 a ton at 336.10. October live cattle down 2 cents at 122.77. December up 55 at 128.07. September feeders up 12 cents at 155. October up 30 cents at 156.67. October lean hogs closed down 75 cents at 84.97, and December down 82 at 74.27. That's a look at how the markets closed. I'm Dwayne Murley.
I'm Charles Payne, and this is the Fox Business Report.
A major sell-off on Wall Street with stocks tumbling. Worries about a spreading contagion of markets from trouble in China's property market, sending stocks toward their steepest declines in months. Also, the Federal Reserve begins a 2-day meeting on Tuesday, and investors are worried that the central bank will signal it's ready to start pulling away monetary stimulus. Banks posted big losses as bond yields slipped. The Dow falling 614 points, but well off session lows. The Nasdaq down 330, S&P 500 down 75. And Twitter will be paying more than $800 million to settle a lawsuit accusing the social media company of misleading investors about how much of its user base was growing and how much users interacted with its platform. The proposed settlement will resolve all claims against Twitter without admitting any wrongdoing. The settlement is subject to court approval. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
What can give you a competitive edge in today's red-hot housing market? Rocket can. That's because Rocket Mortgage can give you a verified approval. It could help your offer stand out. Rocket Technology provides a rock-solid verification of your income, assets, and credit, giving sellers greater confidence in you. Go to rocketmortgage.com or call us today at 8338-ROCKET.
A verified approval is based on an underwriter's analysis of your individual financial information, appraisal, and title report. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender license in all 50 states and MLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is AM 1400 KVFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 436. I'm Michael Devine with the weather. Remember now, we have a severe thunderstorm watch until 10 o'clock tonight. Not warning, but watch. We'll have some rain this evening. We'll have some rain this evening overnight. We will have rain gradually becoming cloudy with a low of 48. Tomorrow, sunny with a high of 68. Wednesday, sunny with a high of 69. Wednesday, clear with a low of, sunny. Wednesday, sunny with a high of 69. Thursday, sunny with a high of 74. There we go. I'm talking too fast. On Friday, partly sunny with a high of 69. On Saturday, sunny with a high of 69. Sunday, sunny with a high of 79 degrees. We're going to get back to Joe Coleman here in just a minute. That is you on the phone here with me, isn't it, Joe?
Yes, it is, Michael.
Just hang on 1 minute, please. The obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home here in town. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117. The historic Bruce Funeral Home is at 923 First Avenue South here in Fort Dodge. Monica Pringle has passed away at the age of 72. She died Saturday the 18th at the Friendship Haven. Funeral services for Monica Pringle will be held at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Friday at Lighthouse Ministry. The historic Bruce Funeral Home is serving the family. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South, Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. Joel Coleman coming in 1 minute.
Right now, people are home with their pets more often, and I think especially with the shedding, they're more cognizant of what's going on and that it's an actual issue.
Nala's got some skin issues. He gets really going and scratching.
Excessive shedding, a lot of just scratching and itching.
Digging, scratching, and itching and biting. On top of that, he was starting to get black buildup in his ears.
DINOVITE.com.
I just heard the Dynovite commercial so many times that I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And I ordered it and tried it, and it worked.
We started Dynovite, and in our first box, we noticed a difference, especially with the shedding.
Within 3 weeks, he's not scratching and itching, and he's an all-around happier dog.
We've got 4 dogs, all different ages, all different sizes, and they've all just responded really
because he looks spectacular. But you hit the nail right on the head. His eyes are penetrating.
They really are.
Yeah.
I never heard too much controversy around Fulton Sheen. Some do. Pope John II, I don't believe, should have been beatified, even though his accomplishments were extraordinary. But he failed at the most crucial test that he had. He failed to really address pedophilia in the priesthood. As a matter of fact, he protected pedophiles in the Catholic clergy. For those reasons, I don't think he should have been beatified. But he was. Beatified, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is when you're made a saint. Sometimes
So
it is.
there's a rule of law, Mike, that says silence is assent. And
Yes.
I don't want you to think that because I'm being silent here, I assent to that.
No, I didn't expect you to. But you can,
All right.
if you want to take a minute to address that, feel free. But we will get back to Rio Navarro. But that's something that's just bothered me, I guess.
Well, you know what? And we should be bothered. There's not a thing in the world with being bothered about that. And more importantly, it needs to be condemned. You know, we talk about things that are bad coming from the Prince of Darkness. No doubt in my mind, that's where this whole pedophilia thing came from. And they were not only were they fellow travelers of the Prince of Darkness, but they were co-conspirators, okay? The fact of the matter is we need to own that as a church, and we need to have, as we currently do, a policy of no tolerance, and they need to be rooted out at every level and defrocked. That's my judgment.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. They're a danger to the truth. That is a living evil inside the church.
Well, hopefully it has been eradicated to a great degree, but vigilance, trust but verify.
That's right. That's right.
And we need to constantly be probing and verifying and taking the complaints that people make and examining them. The lawyer in me, the former prosecutor, comes out when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I got a whiff of smoke here. If it's my house, I'm going to go investigate immediately."
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a 3-alarm fire before I decide where's the fire extinguisher.
Sure. No, that's correct. Joe Coleman's our guest. He's a deacon in the Catholic Church, and this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I have a tendency to wander, as everybody knows, and I don't want to wander too far away from Rerum Novarum because I've been waiting to talk about this with Joe for a long time. What do you get most out of Rerum Novarum?
Rerum Novarum.
Yes.
Talks about two things. Number one, we are under the umbrella of God.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, that we have to love our fellow man. Rerum Novarum is an expansion of the 2 commandments that Christ gave us. That's simple. That's simple. And Mike, when you get right down to it, if I'm doing business with you, I'm either buying or selling something with you, and I am as concerned about Mike as I am about Joe. We're both going to be happy with the result, the commodity of exchange. I'm going to be happy with the product I get from you. You're going to be happy with the money you get from me. That's got to be as plain as can be,
yes.
doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
That is not contrary to capitalism. Never has been contrary to capitalism. There are those charlatans out there that would like to tell you, "Oh no, it's the art of the deal. Who can be smarter here? Whoever gets the other guy down, he's the winner." Yeah, well, that does not lead to an ordered society.
No, it doesn't. A lot of people mistake capitalism for a religion. You talked about making things a religion. Sam Clovis, before you talked about climate change, people accepting this as some sort of new religion. I think that's all correct. Capitalism is not a religion. It's an economic system. It's the best one I can think of, but it's not a perfect system. And we need to keep an eye on the inequalities built into capitalism, which I think is the main message of Rerum Novarum.
It is certainly there. You are absolutely right. But more importantly, Leo the 13th talks to captains of industry, and he says right in Rerum Novarum, hey boys, you have an obligation to be honest yourselves, to police yourselves, to not overreach. And if you don't, it's going to produce disorder and it's going to produce disharmony in our society. How do you miss that, Mike? How do you miss
it? I didn't. I got it, Joe. But there are others who get it as well, but they just don't care. They just don't care. I had a friend of mine on this very program. He commented on StreamYard that he just didn't care about what happened to Iowa in regard to climate change. Just didn't care.
And Mike, that seems like you don't have to talk about climate change.
I'm sorry, it wasn't climate change. It was the Electoral College. I beg your pardon.
Well, when we talk about I don't care, I'm at the hospital every day with people who come in who are unvaccinated and who die, and my heart goes out to them. I want to embrace their families and say, my gosh, we're all in this together. The science is so overwhelming that these vaccines, thank God, are working, are slowing this down. Mike, I'm sorry, I don't get it.
I understand what you're saying. The science may be clear, but we keep getting these ridiculous mixed messages out of Washington. I really think the Democratic administration is playing politics with COVID. And I don't think that's been reported enough. I think that's despicable. Don't play politics with our lives, for God's sake.
Well, we all hear different things. And my hallucination on all of this is that you cannot be well-informed. You cannot be well-informed if you only listen to MSNBC or CNN or Fox News, or you are required, when you form your conscience on a subject matter, to look at all of the facts that are out there.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, if you spend all your time listening to Fox or you spend all your time listening to CNN, it doesn't help.
No, it certainly doesn't.
It doesn't help. But everybody. I was looking the other day. We have a requirement. Everybody in Iowa has to be vaccinated for mumps, measles, rubella, chickenpox, polio. What is the problem with this? But if Antonin Scalia was alive today, the poster child for conservatism, he would be screaming that all of these anti-vaxxers are know-nothings, and are know-nothings in the political sense of that group that existed at the time of the Civil War, right before the Civil War, who literally got us into the Civil War.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing up individual freedom and the right of parents to say what happens with their own children. I think there's a very strong argument in that, rooted in our Constitution and in our faith. I don't think that the idea that an overweening state even if they're telling us, I'm one who believes the greatest damage is done when our leaders act in the public interest, because if you look behind the curtain, sometimes it's not in public service. It benefits them somehow, and I think we have to be vigilant.
I agreed wholeheartedly. We have to be vigilant. I'd like to pose yet another question to you.
All right.
The body of politic who says, this is my right, this is my body, I should be free to do what I want to do with regard to these vaccines, are completely on the other side of the issue when women are saying, this is my body, I should be able to do what I want to do with my body.
Sometimes that's true. You're right. Sometimes, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly opposed to abortion. I don't think the people who would argue against a vaccine or a mandate. Let's not forget, there's no mandate to get an abortion. The government isn't coming to you and say, as they have in China. They did this in China, if you recall. We forbid you to have an abortion. We demand that you have an abortion. We demand we're going to come and get. The Chinese government did this. If they found that a woman was pregnant,
Mike,
yes.
No argument. No argument. I'm just looking at the interesting nature of it. You say that there's no mandate to get an abortion.
No.
I think the obverse side of that coin is that there's a mandate that prohibits you from getting one. And that's why we're getting all these laws in the state. Now, I personally believe that it should be mandated that you can't get an abortion, and it should be mandated that you have to get the vaccine. And let me tell you why. Not necessarily because of the freedom of the person who's making the claim. In the case of the vaccine, we do it for the rest of society, keeping the rest of society safe. Those people who are vulnerable, who have comorbidities, who can't get a vaccine, we have an obligation to protect them. On the abortion side of the issue, we have an obligation to that child.
Okay.
So in both instances, it's not about my freedom. In both instances, it's about a duty that we have to other people.
Sam Coleman's our guest, and I appreciate you being on again, Joe. I look forward to talking with you again next Monday.
All right, buddy. God bless to all your listeners.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Attorney Joe Cordell. New school, new job, new home. Change is hard and can leave you feeling isolated. And divorce delivers one of life's hardest